From the Bill Coleman Practice Complex in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and alongside me, as usually is, THI publisher Andrew Jones. Andrew, a little bit different setup for us today. Carolina was obviously supposed to be starting their spring practice today. They were the last supposed to be, the last ACC team to start spring practice. But with the outbreak of coronavirus and everything, pretty much sports across the whole entire world, not just this country, have been canceled. So it's a little bit different. We were supposed to be I think their spring practice was supposed to kick off at 8 a.m. 8 to 10 a.m. was the set time for today. That didn't happen. We're still here. Charlie Illustrated had to be here. Discuss a few things about what Carolina needs to do going into spring practice. We don't know when that's going to happen. If it's going to happen at this point. It's just a lot of speculation, so we're not going to waste our time speculating that, AJ. But like I mentioned, Carolina was supposed to be the last ACC team to start their spring practice schedule. That's not happened. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's just a weird time we're in right now.
They pushed it actually to start spring practice back 2 weeks.
Yeah, to get a
Brian Hess, the strength and conditioning coach, asked Mac Brown a while ago, look, can you move it back 2 weeks to the middle of March? Because he wanted to get 2 more weeks of agility training. And we talked to Mac a couple weeks ago in advance of spring practice, and also to meet the 2 new assistant coaches and just kind of a state of the program press conference. Excuse me. And he didn't really say exactly why, other than the agility aspect. I would assume maybe it would limit injuries.
Yeah, that might be something to do with it, yeah.
Or just, he's got a routine. He said, well, if we've got to fit all these things into this block, and that's that block of the off season, let's get it all in.
Absolutely.
Last year they started March 2nd. So 2 weeks earlier from today would have been March 3rd. They would have gotten 5 practices in before everything started getting canceled. Because they would have gone every other day, 3 days a week. They would have gone the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and I guess maybe the 9th and 11th. And they would have gotten 5 practices in, which at least would have given the staff a little bit of an idea. They would have been in full pads for 2 of the practices, so they would have hit. So the staff would have on film some hitting, and really one of the points we're going to segue into here in a second was the importance of not just getting the guys out there and seeing them and installing the offense and installing the defense, but there were a lot of dudes that they wanted to take a look at.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And because of some of the guys that were sitting out, there was going to be a strong emphasis on a couple position groups, and not just finding out who the frontline guys were going to be on the defensive line, especially in the interior.
Oh yeah.
But depth.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good segue into our next point. AJ, depth is the biggest question mark, I think, and not only the biggest question mark, but something Mac Brown's trying to build going into this season. Carolina didn't have a lot of it last year. It seemed like every press conference or every opportunity we got to talk to Mac Brown, where you asked him about anything with his concerns with the team, it was always depth.
Yeah.
You mentioned the D-line, the O-line's another position, linebacker. For instance, you talked about it off camera a little bit, but we saw Jeremiah Gemmel and Chad Surratt, 2 of Carolina's best players on defense, but 2 of their starting linebackers last year, play a lot of snaps, play 80-plus snaps a game sometimes. That's not what they want. They maybe want to get them out, especially early in the season. If they can limit those guys to 60, 65 snaps and have some other guys come in for 15 to 20, feeling a lot better about them, you're keeping them fresher, and it just makes the whole team better. Mac Brown's also talked about depth, helping build morale and whatnot. He said that many a times, countless times really. But yeah, depth was the biggest kind of thing that Mac wanted to see built going into the spring practice, and unfortunately for them, who knows if they even get to practice.
He said in that press conference when we had him 3 different times at least.
Oh, he says it all the time.
It was a 52-minute press conference. I actually went through the transcript and tried to.
That's got to be a record.
He said at least 3 times. That's coronavirus. I've got that kind of time on my hands now. That depth was the number 1 priority, and it's depth everywhere. But they're very comfortable in certain position groups. I think they feel pretty good that wide receiver is going to be okay for them. Running back is strong. Loading the secondary, they love the secondary, but they do need a little bit more depth at linebacker, like Jacob just said. Gemmel and Surratt are the guys. I think they think the 3rd guy, they got to figure out who that starter is going to be in the 3rd spot. They like what Eugene Asante and Kadri Jackson will become, especially Asante might be a little bit ahead going into spring practice if there was a spring practice. But they also got to figure out who else they're going to have there. Chris Collins is a guy that didn't get on the field much last year.
No, he didn't play at all, really.
They were sort of reshaping his body a little bit and getting him prepared for this season as one of those hybrid guys, a little bit defensive end, a little bit linebacker, maybe in the mold of Dominique Ross, maybe better potential, higher ceiling for him than Dominique Ross. So that's kind of how you can envision where that group was. But clearly Asante getting a lot of reps Kadri Jackson getting a lot of reps. That's what they're going to look at. And also understand this. I think we're going to see a lot of 4-2-5.
I think so too.
From this group. We're going to see a lot of nickel because they got 10 defensive backs that they like.
Yeah.
And that's too deep if you look at all 5 spots, including the nickel. So you're probably only going to see Surratt and Gimmel on the field with a nickel and with your guys up front and your secondary. So the third linebacker spot is really important, but the depth that they have behind Surratt and Gimmel is extremely important.
Yeah.
Depth on the offensive line is a big issue. The Awesome Richards is Max said he's going to be he would have entered spring practice as the starting left tackle. Then you've got Jordan Tucker as the starting right tackle. You've got Marcus McKeithen as the right guard, Brian Anderson at center, and then at left guard would be Josh Azudu, who, by the way, started at left tackle in the App State game last year because there wasn't a whole lot of depth. Behind them, Jonathan Adorno, the true freshman who's got a lot of work in the player-led practices at center. You've got THI Murray, who was injured some last year in redshirt as a true freshman. He's on the depth chart, didn't get on the field really. So that's the kind of year it was. Got to figure out what William Barnes is going to be. And then you've got a couple of young kids that they're going to give an opportunity. Tristan Miller's going to get a look. A lot of people have been asking about Wisdom Asaburo. He is an offensive lineman. People were not sure really what side of the ball he was going to be. But Max said, offensive line, but he wasn't going to participate this spring. And then the other area is defensive line. And in the interior, there's huge question marks because they lose Strobridge, they lose Crawford.
A lot of guys.
They really like Vahasik, but they don't know how much he could give them. You know, he would just started lifting weights during last season because the effects of the shoulder injury that he had. But I'm not sure he's a 60 or 50 snap a game guy.
Maybe he will, but
Jaleel Taylor probably is one player we know is going to get a lot of reps.
Talked a lot about him,
but he wasn't going to play this spring, so it was going to give Zach Gill a bunch of reps to show them whether, you know, this is, I hate to use this term, but sort of a fork in the road camp for him. He really needed this camp
kind of thing,
sort of to make or break where he was. They want to look at Christian Varner a lot. They want to look at Kevin Hester a lot. So they're going to miss out on a lot of those opportunities. We don't know if, let's say 2 months from now, everything starts to return to normal, if the NCAA and the ACC will grant UNC a waiver and say, okay, in May you could have maybe 2 weeks to get 10 practices in or something like that. When they do that, these are the areas of emphasis that they'll have in the program. This is what they miss most by not having a spring practice. I know that's a lot of stuff, but that's
a lot of stuff.
That's what we would have been reporting on every day coming over here. The questions would have been about the depth in those 3 groups especially.
And there's really not a ton of positives you can take about this situation as a whole, but I guess one, if you had to try to find one for Carolina, is if this would have happened last year, Mack Brown coming in, it would have been, I mean, I don't want to say devastating, but it would have been really bad. I mean, they wouldn't even the coaches would have never had a chance to look at these players at all before the season really started, before fall camp. So the fact that this did hit this season, the program's in a lot better shape than it was last year. Mack Brown's obviously been here, his staff's been here a year, barring 2 of the new guys. But the program's a little bit more settled. The guys are in place. They know what the standards are here right now. Carolina didn't lose a ton of guys from last year either, so it's not like they have to bed there's obviously a good freshman class that's already here, but it's not like they have to bed a whole new team into a whole new system. So I guess that's a positive you can take away, the fact that, like you mentioned, we don't know if Carolina's ever going to even get to do spring practice because we don't know what any of the situations is going to ever lead to. But I guess you have to take a positive from this, unfortunate situation. It's the fact that this would have happened last year when the team was coming in and the new staff was coming in. Who knows? I mean, it would have been bad.
They're light years ahead of where they were this time last year. And it's not just knowing the players they have on the field. By the way, there were 13 early enrollees that they're getting reports on from player-led practices and strength and conditioning, and they love what these 13 guys have done. We mentioned Adorno.
Adorno being one of them.
Really making a strong impression. But there's so much further ahead because they didn't lose a ton of guys. They know what they have. But more than anything, it's the staff. Last year, they had no experience together as a staff.
No, they had none.
Coaching on the field together, and then evaluating the practice film together, and how guys look at certain things, and hashing out, should this guy be first or second team? Should this guy maybe consider moving to another position? How they communicate, how they work through things. All that stuff they've already done. I know that Javon DeWitt and John Lilly have been around for a little bit of time now, and it would be easy for them to assimilate into something that's already been established.
For sure.
So the fact that the program is so much further ahead makes this ideal. If it's going to happen, it happens now, as opposed to a little bit devastating a year ago. Really,
oh my God, it really would have been. Yeah.
And it would have kind of slowed the message, because Mac kept saying, we want to make this the cool place to be.
Yeah.
Well, at some point you've got to get on the field.
Yeah, you have to
even
play.
if it's spring practice that 90% of the football world doesn't pay attention to, but recruits do. We came to a lot of spring practices every time there was availability. We were here, and there were recruits here. And they were watching how the team works. They were looking. They were getting a feel for the vibe, the spirit around the program, the intensity of the workouts, the organization of the workouts, and how the coaches interacted with players, and how the players responded to the coaches. Now they can't sell that, and that's one of the strengths of this program right now.
It is. That's
one of the elements of the cool place to be, because everybody's bought in.
Yeah, recruiting.
So they can't sell that. Recruiting will be effective. We'll hit on recruiting in another video, but that's kind of a positive, though. At least they know a lot of these things.
If you had to find one, I guess that would be one.
The foreign element to it, like foreign to how things are done, is not the case, because the players can still do things together.
Yeah, they can still work out.
They had player-led practices before spring practice was supposed to start, and I know that I guess they can't put 11 on the field because the 10 so-called rule that will probably be in place by the time you guys watch this video, the way things are moving right now. Bottom line is they can still do stuff together. They can still teach. They could pass it down, because so many of these guys that are here were on the field and have been through it. So they can at least work through it from that perspective.
Weird times, AJ, really is.
Strange times, but we're not going away.
No,
if you're not a regular on our site on TarHeelIllustrated.com, check us out. We're going to have at least 2 to 3 new, fresh content items every day on our site throughout this process. We have no idea how long it's going to take.
We can control,
And we're doing some fun stuff. Next week, we every year we do I call it the May and June series, the spring series, where we do something historical, ranking past players, teams, moments. Last year we did the best Tar Heel football or basketball player from each of the 50 states. Well, this year we're kind of having a little bit more fun. We're going back to doing the top 20 UNC football teams, the top 30 UNC basketball teams, and instead of running that in May and June, we're actually going to start it next week. We're moving it up.
You got to speed everything up.
You guys need to have some fun. You need to have some information and some news, whatever information news that we're able to dig up, but you also need to have some fun. So come check out Tar Heel Illustrated. We're going to have a lot of different stuff for you, a lot of videos. Jacob and I are not going to be a stranger here, because as long as Chapel Hill's open,
we're good to go.
As long as these roads are open, we can drive in here, and this camera works, and neither one of us are in a hospital bed. And I don't even mean to make light of the situation, but we're trying to give you a diversion. And right now, a diversion is needed, perhaps more than any time that we can recall, certainly going back to 9/11.
Oh, absolutely.
So stay with us. We're going to have a lot of cool stuff for you moving forward. Videos, print stuff. We've got the podcast going. All kinds of stuff at TarHeelIllustrated.com.
Yeah, it's definitely not stopping
That's
over here.
my pitch for the day.
Yeah, it's definitely not stopping over here at TarHeelIllustrated.com. Still plenty of stuff for us to do and discuss. But for THI, I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like. As always, be sure to share. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.